And welcome back to Occasionally Philosophical. I'm Doug.
And Mark.
And the last time we we ended, we thought we were wrapping up with our look at the situation with ICE, aftermath from Minnesota, Renee Good and Alex Preddy, and we thought we were going to move on to something else, but we weren't quite sure where we were going. And over the week, we decided we weren't really quite done with this live free or die and comply or die kind of cognitive dissonance that many of us, at least here in America, live with. So we thought we'd try to dig into that a little bit more,
Yeah.
or at least that's what I wanted to do. And Mark's got that blank look on his face, and I'm like,
No,
okay, are you with me here, kid?
yeah, no, I'm sorry. I was trying to read the outline. But
No,
anyway.
I'm joking. To keep the mood light.
Yeah, yeah.
This is a heavy subject, obviously.
Yeah, no,
Two people dead.
definitely.
We don't want to. At least I don't want to add to the weight that people are carrying.
But yeah.
We're all carrying enough right now.
But
At
yeah,
least
it
I think
kind
so.
of I think it started from you said you were reading something about where they were complying, but they still shot them or whatever was where
Yeah,
you
yeah. Where was that? I had, you know what I had done? That's what I had done. I'd done, do my little searches. And me, I have a love-hate relationship with these AI tools that are being foisted on us. But I figured they're here, let me use them. So I went out to Perplexity and I put in my question, okay, about the comply or die versus live free or die, to try to get like a broad overview of the literature on both sides.
Yeah.
And one of the things that it came up with on the comply or die frame was an essay. You know what? Let me pull it up. Let me not,
Yeah,
let's not
no,
fuss
yeah.
around here.
Right. Pull it up.
uh,
Worst case, we
yeah,
can always cut this part out.
yeah. Hold on.
And we're back.
Perplexity. And we're back. Yeah, Perplexity. All right. There's Perplexity, library, comply or die. Where was the guy? I'll recognize it when I see him. The guy, yeah, is it this one? New York Post, CBS News. All right, it's here. Um, hmm. Yeah, I'm probably not going to be able to find it now. But anyway, the I'll keep looking for it while we're talking. But in this particular guy's essay, he was making a reference to Nazi Germany,
Right.
right? And he was saying that, and he was pointing out the fact that as the Jewish population was being arrested, they were complying. These are the police, whatever they were doing.
Yeah.
But as they stood there along these ditches, they could hear the people being shot further down,
Right.
and rather than run, they just stayed there.
Yeah.
And he was puzzling, like, what was that? Like, have you internalized the obedience to authority so deeply that even though obeying is going to result in your death, the thought that disobeying just isn't a live option for you? And
Yeah.
I do need to find that, because I want to give the credit where it's due. It's not
Yeah.
my
No.
idea at all. And if it's wrong, I'd like to, hey, you criticize that guy, not me.
Yeah. Well,
I'll
yeah.
find it here.
Yeah. Cause I mean, it could also be not so much that it's so ingrained. I mean, it could just be the whole flight or freeze or, the trauma response thing too. They maybe they wanted to run, but they're like, I'm just, it wasn't. Yeah. No, I was just saying, I think, it could possibly be that too. It's just like it's not so much that the obeying is so ingrained in me. It's just that, like, I know I'm gonna die, but, like, I'm too scared to run or so.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm not finding the initial thing, but um, because there's so many links when you do a perplexity thing, like each little blink, it says, okay, this is where I got this from, and then it could be one or two or three, whatever.
Oh, I
You,
see.
you know, like these are the sources that I use to give, this particular
Answer.
thing. Because it's like this one here has criminal legal news. This one is Instagram. That one's Politico, Wikipedia, Counterpunch, BBC. And I forget like which one of those things that I clicked that had the link to that particular, you know, story.
Yeah.
But it is here. And
But yeah, but that's I mean, the Holocaust, that was a time in history where people were complying, you know,
and
at
dying.
and still dying, so compliance, and I think, like we talked about before we started recording, like compliance is necessary to a certain extent, right? For us to live in a organized
Well,
society.
yeah, we have, well, here in America, we like to think that we have the rule of law.
Right.
And well, even if you say even the word rule, right?
Yeah.
I mean, not only does it pick out a procedure or, but it also the rule, like power over you, rulership. So we have that. So yeah, there is at least some built-in recognition that we have to be compliant, obedient to a set of rules in order for the society to function, in order for us to get along, you know,
Right.
right? I,
But I think it's
I don't
just
know how anarchy would work in actual practice,
yeah.
to be
So,
or that level of anarchy, right?
yeah, I mean, I think the problem just lies in the or dying or and dying part. The or and it's not so much the complying that's the problem, it's the dying.
It's the threat that if I don't follow the rules, I forfeit my life,
Right. You
right?
know.
And it's like we all know, all of us know this. Um, we're um we have to obey certain rules, right?
Right.
Just whatever. You get in your car. Yes, I want to drive at 80 miles an hour, but the speed limit's 65 and there are other people on the road.
Yeah.
So maybe we drive at 70 just because we're rebellious, right? And or we understand that maybe the town that we live in has rules about what we can throw out. Right.
Yeah.
So even though our kid moved out and we're getting rid of all the junk in his closet that he or she didn't take when they moved out, we just can't pile that on the curb. Right.
Yeah.
If we do, we're going to have to pay a fine.
Yeah.
Right. Kind of thing. And David Graeber talks a lot about that in his book, The Utopia of Rules, and the violence of the state and even enforcing that.
Yeah.
And but he refers to everything as state violence too. So, you take that with a grain of salt. But, um, this idea that if you don't follow the rules, they have ways of making your life difficult, right?
Right.
And more difficult than you'd want it to be, which is the price that most of us are willing to pay. Right? Most of
Yeah.
us are we don't we may not like all the rules of the township or the county or the state that we live in, but we follow them for the most part.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect.
Right.
And so it's when it moves to this other, when it becomes I'm not just going to get a fine. I'm not maybe going to spend the night in jail because I was drinking, I was, drunk in public.
Yeah.
right? So they throw me in the holding cell, let me sober up, and then send me home in the morning with a fine for being a public nuisance, right? We accept that kind of stuff, right? It's we the it gets amplified, right, into this, crisis when um people start dying,
Yeah.
right? Because they weren't following the rules.
Right.
All right, go to jail. Maybe it's even they're wrongfully imprisoned and we can fight about that. But the other conflict is, now we're getting into like the live free or die, and that thing where those two things clash, I think,
Yeah.
because one of our, at least again, as Americans, we have to always make that caveat that this is not a universal perspective. It's just
Right.
our perspective as Americans, is the right to protest,
Right.
right? If I don't like what's going on, I should be able to grab my little piece of poster board, write something on it, nail it to a
Yeah.
stick, and stand there in front of City Hall or whatever and
And
yell at
yeah.
them and say, "Stop doing what you're doing," right?
Right.
Which seems to be right now under attack,
Yeah.
right? And that's part of the fight that seems to be going on as well, right? Because on the one hand, you have the group of people that are taking the live free or die First Amendment very seriously, right?
Yeah.
I have a right to say to my government when I think that they're messing up,
Right.
right? And so I'm going to go out there on the streets, and ICE is here in my city or my town, and I don't want them here. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to say, "Get out of here,"
Yeah.
right? And I'm going to yell at them. And
Right.
maybe I'm going to try to impede them a little bit, civil disobedience,
Yeah.
right? Good old, that's a good old American thing too, civil disobedience.
Right.
And when we do that, which we think, I think that I should be able to do that. If I would
Yeah.
wanted to do that today, I would not. Well, no, today I would go out with that fear that something bad could happen.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
prior to today, 5 years
Yeah.
ago, I wouldn't have worried about it. If I was angry enough about something and I heard about a protest, sure, I'll go out there and raise my fist and, and try to get
Right.
people to honk their horn when they drive by my little group. Sure, why not?
Yeah.
But now it's like, if I were to choose to do that now, I'm actually placing myself at risk,
Right.
which is a new reality, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's I mean, it's definitely a shift because it's yeah, this is America. Don't tread on me, right? With that's the other like we said, the other side of the argument. And it's like, yeah, you don't want to be violent, right? That was the other thing. But it's always like, well, as long as it's a peaceful protest. Now there could be
Yeah.
arguments for in past, but I don't want to litigate that. But it's like,
Well,
as far as what's peaceful and what's not peaceful, because you got some people was saying, well, you're impeding traffic as an example. Like, how is that? Like, you shouldn't, but it's like at the same
you
time,
have
it's
to
like,
be inconvenient, and
correct.
the
Yeah,
whole
that's what
point
I was gonna say.
of a protest is to inconvenience somebody so they'll notice you.
Right.
If
Because
you're
if you're not,
completely inconvenienced,
then it's not a protest.
if you're completely convenient, yeah, if you're not inconveniencing anyone,
Then it's
it's not
not.
really much of a protest.
Yeah.
I'm voicing my opinion, sure, okay,
Right.
and
But
I'm voicing my opinion loudly, okay, but you're not you it's not going to get the attention of the people that you wanna get the
if
attention
it
of if you're
doesn't
not
disrupt something, it has
if
to,
it doesn't disrupt something. Yeah.
yeah,
So
so
in
it's
order for something to, at least in the current environment, you have to disrupt something in order to get noticed. All
right.
right. But now you place yourself, especially if you're trying to disrupt ICE operations or
Right.
what is it? The Border Patrol operations, suddenly now it's not, maybe you get roughed up a little, get thrown in, in a cell overnight.
Yeah.
Now it's like, oh, they're just going to pull their weapon out and lay you out.
Right.
Or that's the fear that people have. And now you have to start think we go back to our culture of fear discussion of a few weeks ago, and you have to start saying, "Well, what am I not doing that I could be doing, that I should be doing, because I'm afraid of negative consequences from a government or whatever that has way more power than I have,
Yeah.
right? That can basically deprive me of all my liberty, right? Or what
Right.
little what limited liberty I do have in the current system can be removed from me if I protest in the wrong way."
Right.
And that's an uncomfortable position for this old man to live in.
Well, yeah, especially since, uh, essentially protesting is really the only thing we have. I mean, yeah, you can vote, like there's the voting aspect of it, but like the other aspect of our making change, I guess, is just it's protesting, you know.
Right.
So it's like
So,
if you're taking that away, that's why it's I mean, I'm pretty sure that's why it's the First Amendment. Like the very first
well,
one
yeah,
they
I mean,
after they wrote the whatever,
the Mark, it's called the
the
Constitution. You're an
Constitution.
American. You should, dude, try to keep up. All right. So now, how do you justify this? Like, so we're on this thing, right? And now you're out in the world and you're talking to someone, right? And they're on whatever. You agree. Say you both agree that maybe ICE is out of control, or
Right.
you think that maybe you don't think it's out of control yet, but you think if it keeps going this way, it will be.
Yeah.
But whatever. But you're on that side of the spectrum. How do you defend that? Like, just your opinion? This is where we start. Well, okay, you're not just going to take my word for it. You're going to let me grab a book. Let me say, well, you here, read this guy or read this girl or this woman,
Yeah.
right?
And
Um,
but it's funny cuz some of the stuff is like yeah, I mean, I guess it is ultimately your what you've read or consumed over your life, but it's like sometimes, it's just like I feel like I shouldn't have to throw a book at you for you to like watch somebody get shot like that and just be like, "No,
and
that's
think
fine."
that it's wrong.
And not think that it's wrong, I feel like just the human empathy, which is something else we've talked about on the show, would just kick in. Like
Would kick in. So you find yourself in this situation where you're talking to someone and you both agree that this thing is wrong, and now you're trying to say, well, yeah, but what do we do?
Right.
And now you're like, okay, what organization do you get involved in? Right? You know, is it because on an individual level, right?
Yeah.
We're against ICE or against the federal government or even against the local government. We're an
Yeah.
individual, one person, right? What are you going to
Yeah.
do? You still have to wake up in the morning. You still have to go to work. You still have to navigate with all the people at the stores that you go to and,
Yeah.
et cetera, customers of your business, et cetera. Still have to navigate all that. And all of these things
Yeah.
are way out there, right? They're not part of your day-to-day life. But when at some point you're gonna go to the polls, you're gonna vote, or, hopefully we're still gonna be able to vote,
Yeah.
and we're and w you're trying to pick someone who's going to help you enact the story, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what we're all doing, right? We're all living our stories. You live your story every day. You have a story in your head, you've built it over 45 years, and this is how the world is. This is how I am. This is how people are. And when you walk out into the world, you're enacting that story.
Yeah.
And you're encountering other people that are enacting their own stories. And those are local, your individual biography contained within this narrative, this social narrative, right? Of whatever, like America. And then that's part of this civilizational narrative. that we're, and what holds it all together are these beliefs and things that are unchallenged for the most part about how things work together, right?
Yeah.
And so, on the one hand, we're all right, here we have a real, actual on the ground situation that we're both trying to navigate today, right? I saw online the other day that ICE is now active in New Jersey, right?
Yeah, I saw that
And
too.
so, I haven't, in my going out and about, I haven't seen any ICE vehicles or anything like that. So I haven't been confronted with what am I going to do,
Yeah,
right? And so, but that's a live question for me now because now
right,
it's not Minnesota. You know, it's right around the corner from me. I mean, right now, where I heard was like they're operating in like Jersey City up that way.
right.
Um, So now whether they come down here to Monmouth County, whether they start hitting the local, Home Depots and what have you, where the immigrants, collect for the day labor,
Yeah,
I don't know. And I'm not out of the house all the time,
right.
and so it's late winter, early February here. So I'm not really outside a lot, but as the weather gets nicer, well, I'm gonna have to move because 'cause I'm getting evicted, but, wherever I end up, am I going to end up where I'm now going to have to be out and about and watching ICE activity and, am I going to be am I going to exercise my privilege? That's the
Yeah,
question,
right.
right? That's the real question at this particular point in 2026. As a white man in
Yeah,
this country, I could be walking down the street and see ICE just knocking the crap out of people, walk right past them within 2 inches of an ICE officer, and they wouldn't touch me because I'm an old white man, as long as I didn't say anything to them,
yeah,
and my life would just continue. The question is, would I be able to live with myself if I did that,
right.
right? And do I need to grab, right? If I do choose to act because it's what I feel the moment calls for,
Yeah,
do I need to reach into my library somewhere to say, well, this is why I'm acting this way?
yeah,
No, I shouldn't need to, right? But, the world that we live in tends to require that. Right. Is why the occasionally philosophical part of the title is that I try to avoid that like academic philosophy. Well, let's take Nozick and look at anarchy, state, and utopia and develop his whole argument and show what's good and what's bad about it and blah, 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 blah.
yeah.
Because that works in academic symposiums and things like that. And it's really good for that kind of stuff. But for the average person on the street dealing with what they got to deal with every day,
It's
all
not.
their the ideas contained in that book are part of the ambient atmosphere, but they're not at that level of granularity and detail, you know? Yeah, a Nozickian ideal of freedom is that individual rights are inviolable. Any action by the state that limits your ability to do whatever the hell you want is, by definition, coercive,
Yeah,
right? It violates your self-ownership. Okay.
right. So
Now go.
no, I was just yeah, but is that like do we really need like that much autonomy to where like nobody can tell me to do anything? Like cuz we are still social creatures, we need some sort
Right.
of
So rather and here's where that's why, like I said, where the occasionally thing comes in because, yeah, if you wanted to, I could go find my copy of Anarchy, State, and Utopia, and we could sit there and go through it chapter by chapter and take his arguments apart and all of that kind of stuff.
right.
But at the end of the day, you can you can see the influence of his ideas in the thinking of other people,
Yeah.
right? And so even though in its pure form, you can, you know, take it on its, evaluate it on its merits, that's not the way that it filters out to people like you and me for the
Yeah.
most part. Because those ideas, it's sort of you're a huge fan of The Simpsons, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I haven't watched it
Right?
in a while, but yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but that was your thing for a long time. Because I mean,
Yeah.
that show came on when you were like 8 years old or something like that?
Yeah, the original,
Yeah.
like, on the Tracy Ullman Show. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, well, you weren't even in double digits yet, so that's been a
Yeah.
part The Simpsons has been a part of your life, like, forever,
Yeah.
right? And in your watching it, one of the things that's interesting is that a good number of the writing staff of The Simpsons are all, like, PhDs.
Yeah, no, they're like a lot of them. They're like MIT and they've Harvard, and they're
Yeah,
really smart guys.
right. So and then when you watch The Simpsons and they're playing with a lot of these ideas,
Yeah. It's
right?
something I
And
didn't
they're make
appreciate as a kid, but when I
Well, no, of
rewatched it
course not,
as an
you're a
adult.
kid, right?
Yeah.
But now when you watch them as an adult, you suddenly realize what they're poking fun at.
Yeah.
Like, what they're really kind of trying to, have a little fun with or illustrate, some points. And so you can see these ideas bubble up in cartoon shows. And that
Right.
was like when we talked about the voice of mother culture, why it can be it's so hard to get a handle on, right?
Right, because that's like a I feel like that's kind of a perfect example. It's like you have these smart guys who are just writing a cartoon, but they're putting little, little nuggets in there here and there and,
Mhm.
playing like
And you're paying attention, but you're also, whether you realize it or not,
you're
all
in.
these little nuggets that you're picking up are building a world for you. Just like, one of your favorite shows as a teenager was that Dawson's Creek,
Oh, yeah.
right? Now, alright, for whatever, I mean, you can criticize the show now in
Yeah.
hindsight for whatever, right? But at the time, it was immensely popular.
Killer, yeah.
Right? And then again, now you're watching The Simpsons sometimes, and you're watching Dawson's Creek at other times, and you're
Yeah.
watching Fresh Prince of Bel-Air at other times, and
Right.
you're listening to the Boys to Men, and you're listening to this, right?
Yeah.
And you're reading books, and you're going to school, and all of these little bits, are of the story are echoed over and over and over again.
Yeah, because there's certain pieces that are there's of the story that go through all of them. They're each
Mhm.
telling their own, like, version, but there's also yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and The Simpsons couldn't be more different,
Right.
right? But yet, if you were to take the lens that we're looking at right now, you could probably find similarities in the structure.
Yeah.
What story are they telling in The Simpsons about how life is, right? How the world works? And then
Yeah.
what story are they telling in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air about the system and how the world works,
You're right. You'd
right?
probably find more
And you're
similarities.
gonna find some similarities into how those things are built. Even though, you've got, the ghetto kid from Philly living with the lawyer
Rich
dad
his rich
or
uncle.
rich uncle, his rich
Yeah.
uncle in Beverly Hills or Bel
Yeah.
Air,
Yeah.
right? And this supposed culture clash
Right.
between the street kid and the prep school kid,
Yeah.
Carlton
Right.
and Will,
Yeah, yeah.
and yet, how is that different, right, from the way that relationships and class differences and what have you were portrayed in The Simpsons?
Yeah.
Mr. Burns versus Homer Simpson versus Apu at the convenience store,
Right.
the nerd guy at the comic book shop. I forget what that character's name.
I mean, he's just a comic book guy, but yeah.
Yeah, but whatever, so but yet those stereotypes in those cartoons are carrying through stories about how
Right.
the world is organized and how people relate to each other,
Right.
right? and you build your worldview from all of that stuff, right?
without
You did.
without even thinking about it or being conscious
You're
of it.
not you're not thinking about, yeah, yeah. Were you thinking about, I'm building my worldview? No, you were just watching TV, having fun, playing video games,
Yeah,
just
exactly.
living,
Right.
right? But now here you are, an adult, 2 people dead in Minnesota.
Yeah.
I'm angry about that. I'm upset about that. I don't wanna live in a world where that kind of stuff happens.
Yeah.
What what do I believe? How do I be, or it's happening and there are people that are justifying it and I don't agree with them and they're my age, so we were watching the same things. How did they get to have those weird beliefs?
Right. I think that's like more kind of the question is just like how, which is why part of what we've been talking about this whole time is just, yeah, like how do you get to that point? You
Right.
know,
What are you grabbing from the world? What's your experience of the world such that you and I can look at the same things
see,
and not come or and come and have these two completely different views?
yeah, because it's not so much, yeah, I mean, nobody's gonna see everything exactly the same way, but like
I wouldn't want
to
to.
be so, right, but to be so opposite, especially on something as serious as like a human life, like being extinguished. Like, because in a lot of ways, it's just like, I don't know, I feel like you should just feel bad. Because somebody that, yeah, I don't know, because I think
Yeah.
about because all of us are going to, die at some point, right? But ideally, you'd like it to last longer than shorter.
Yeah, I
So I
think,
think
well,
when I see somebody else, especially when they're in a stage of life where it's like, well, they still did have more time to go, you're like, oh, geez, over
well, yeah.
something that seems so, in my mind, seems so, A, it's my American right, and B, you know, it seems like trivial for you to lose your life over that, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, I think, and again, I know whether I never articulated it as the live free or die. Even though you see the flags around, you know,
Yeah,
uh, and I never really articulated my belief system in that way. But yet, when I see it framed that way, I go, well, yeah, that is part of how you know, I actually feel like that
yeah,
freedom is that kind of thing that, yeah, I would, if you're gonna put me in a police state, see ya.
right.
That's not the kind of life.
That I'd
But
like
it,
to live.
but
Like,
again, but that's all part of my education. So again, it's all culturally conditioned, right? And so being able to step outside of that, even to say, should I have that belief in the first place? Right? Yeah,
yeah,
I have it. I do. Is that universal in a sense? And then you start looking at other cultures and things like that. And you start saying, well, yeah, this concept of like individual autonomy does seem to be pretty universal, at least for me. I mean, it shows up. I mean, like over in the Chinese, culture, and that they tend to be more interrelational, as far as just their social structure. It's not quite so individualistic as it is,
yeah,
but you still have that there's freedom to choose within those relationships.
right.
Um, so I don't think that my my sort of unreflective conception of freedom is necessarily all a product of American individualism, kind of thing.
Yeah,
You
I
know.
think if I feel like this, the American idea of autonomy and individualism is just more of an extreme, you
All
know,
right, so just it's a good idea taken too far. Is that what?
kind of, because, well, yeah, I mean, it's like I mean, I've had these conversations a lot. It's friends that I've had, people that I've known in my life that were not born in America. They generally live with family members. You said, just autonomy is like important in general, just to humans. A certain amount of freedom is important to just humans across the board.
Mhm.
But then it just reminded me of like just, being an American and knowing immigrants. It's like, having friends and whatever, coworkers, and it's like they live with family members that it's not necessarily seen as a bad thing. Like they're adults and they live with their parents, and even their kids live. It's like, three generations of families all together in one house, and it's not necessarily seen as like a bad thing. It's fine. Whereas, like, from an American perspective, it's like, no, when you're 18 or when you graduate college or whatever, you go get your own house and you don't live with your
Well,
family members. So that's
mm,
kind of what I meant, why it's like it's on steroids, so to speak, or it's like it's just
yeah,
extreme
individualism on
individual.
s
Because
yeah.
my point be back to is those people still have autonomy, like, even though they live with their family and stuff, and they are a little more closer knit and in community with each other, but they still do have a certain level of freedom and autonomy and stuff. I mean, I'm
Well,
sure they're
one of the things that I reflect on quite a bit is that in a community like that, you actually have more freedom than rugged individualism. Because rugged individualism means you're on your own for everything,
yeah,
right? And that means the entire burden of doing everything falls on you,
right.
right? Where a community, and like your example of the three generations in the same home, you got the grandparents, the main family, and then you got the grandkids,
Yeah,
and everybody, but they're all helping each other. So
right.
by everybody helping each other, everyone has more freedom than if every one of those individual units, if the grandparents are over here, the parents are here, the grandkids are over there,
Yeah.
you know, then you have, you need more resources to care for all that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, because
Right.
even
Eh,
yeah, small stuff, daycare, childcare, like, I don't even need daycare because grandparents are here or
well, yeah,
whatever.
yeah, grandma and grandpa are retired. One of them is home. If grandpa's out golfing, grandma's home. If
Yeah,
grandma's at the craft thing, grandpa's home.
yeah,
So there's always someone there to take care of the kids. So the kids can come home from school and they're never going to come home to an empty house.
yeah, or even like, I don't know, I'm sure, you raising me as a single parent, like, like, you had to go to the grocery store, you had to bring me with you, it's like you
Mhm.
couldn't just be like, "Oh, I'm gonna run to the store real quick," right? So,
And when you were, and then, it's like, well, any single parent knows the drill, right? It's like when your kid's like 3 or 4 or 2, when they were little, every time you left the house, you had to have this whole bag over your shoulder with diapers and formula
yeah,
and then as they got older, okay, there was less of that. And then it got like when you got to be around 11 or 12, then I could say, Mark, I got to run to the store real quick. Don't get in any trouble.
yeah, just
And then
yeah,
I could go. But there was a period of time. Yeah, exactly. It's like I couldn't responsibly leave you alone,
yeah.
right? I mean, I could have, but
Yeah,
I would have had child services knocking on my door or something, right?
right.
Oh, speaking about freedom, right?
Yeah,
If I would have left you alone at like 6 years old to go to the store, I would have had child services, coming, taking you away from me, saying that
right,
I'm not a responsible parent.
right.
So yeah, there's all those kinds of things that we lose in our hyper individualistic society,
Yeah,
right? And then what does that what does that do to then the stories that we start to, rest in, or um the frameworks that we begin to accept? Like, what else flows from, like, what other story frames would then flow from this hyper individualism?
personal responsibility.
Okay. right?
you know?
And
It
now
it's
and then
like we
from that
talked about, yeah, because we talked about before, it's like it the blame gets put on the person that actually got died, the person that died,
right.
that got shot. It's like, oh, well, why were they, those questions start coming up. What were they doing? Why were they there? Why were they, you know, where it's like, yeah,
Alright. Yeah, and it's symptomatic of a larger issue too. I mean, this is kind of a tangent away from our live free or die or whatever, but it's also what happens almost any analysis that you read of what's wrong with society today,
yeah,
any of the good ones, they focus on systemic, right?
right,
It's the system. It's the attention economy, it's the surveillance economy, it's surveillance capitalism, whatever. It's systemic.
right.
And then you get to the end of the essay, and what's the answer?
Personal responsibility.
Personal responsibility.
Yeah,
Shut your phone off. Oh, your kids are addicted to social media and they don't talk to you? Take their phones away from them.
right.
Okay, but they don't say sit down and talk to your kids,
Yeah.
right? Actually build well, why don't your kids have any friends?
It
Right,
it's I yeah, it kind of it reminds me like that whole yeah, it's like a workaround. It's like something I get annoyed with at work. It's like, okay, we've the system there's something wrong with the system because we have this process and it goes A, B, C, D, and for some reason, every time at C, there's like a kink or something happens that's not quite flowing smoothly. And then it's like, oh, well, we just do this. Right. And I'm like, but that's not really addressing the issue. You're kind of just doing a workaround. It's like instead of like addressing the systematic issue.
right. So, we talk about systems, right?
Right.
We have alright, we've this has been a through line since almost, maybe our 3rd episode, of the white supremacist society that we live in, and here we are 2 white guys talking about it, right? And it's awkward,
Yeah.
right? But it's also systemic,
Yeah.
right? So the personal responsibility on the systemic racism just doesn't, you know, it doesn't
Fall on it.
it doesn't rise to the level it needs to rise to.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, you have a personal responsibility. Yes, absolutely, I have a personal responsibility not to be racist in my dealings with the people that I encounter,
Yeah.
right? And there's a group of people that's asking me to do more, and I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I'm willing to do more structurally if I can,
Yeah.
but you gotta aim me somewhere. You can't just tell me the structure. Well,
Right.
what part of the structure can I actually have an effect on?" Right? Because it's a huge structure,
Yeah.
right? That's been built out over, and I mean, it's the history of Western civilization. So one individual is not going to dismantle that entire structure that includes governmental systems, religious systems, economic systems,
Yeah.
right? But to say that the answer to systemic racism is personal responsibilities is bullshit.
Right.
In the same way that the answer to what you do about the systemic abuses of the government right now under ICE and Border Patrol is just personal responsibility.
Yeah.
That's
You
bullshit.
you
No,
can't just
it's not just personal responsibility. It's not, well, if you don't want to die, don't piss off an ICE officer while they're marching down the streets rounding up people that I don't think should be rounding up.
right. Yeah.
And so that personal responsibility thing, but we have personal safety,
Yeah.
right? You know, um, and then you sort of, you get to and this is one of those things that I'm not sure how to deal with it because you have like the people of extraordinary character, the Martin Luther Kings, the Nelson Mandelas, people of just, for whatever reason, they, you know, and they're willing to put their life out there,
Yeah.
and say, "Here's what I believe in. If it costs me my life, fine," you know? And then you say, is that at least the question, it's a live question in my mind, is that a, is that a trait that everyone has? Is everyone capable of that? Or is that, reserved for only a certain, class of people?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It probably it, I don't know if this is the best example, but it's like, you know how there's like certain people that are like billionaires and the most of us are not.
Right.
Like it's like, and there's like this drive they have for whatever reason, like no matter how much money they have. I feel like maybe it's like the people that go, it's like they just took that drive that some people have and pointed it in a good direction, or what I would think is a
Point.
good, it's
Or
like
at least
like
instead of just trying to make money, they've taken that same passion and aimed it in
yeah,
a different direction.
maybe
So
some
you
of
think
the
we all have it?
no, I don't think we all have it.
Alright, so you do think that there are some people that are just naturally bystanders to life.
Well, yeah, I guess. I don't think our brains are like all of our brains are wired that because I don't know. I'm sure you've met those people in your life where they're just like, go, 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 and I got to do this. I'm doing this, and I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah, well, yeah, sure, type A people, yeah, we all have
yeah.
them.
And then so it's like I don't. I mean, maybe you could. Maybe I'm not giving people enough credit. Maybe you could train yourself.
Well, this is the cultivation of virtue,
Yeah.
right? Like, what makes a good person?
Right.
Now, again, who gets to decide that, right? Well, within
My
your
story.
own
My
within your
story.
own story within your
Yeah.
own story, you're like, "Okay, how do I conceive of what being a good person is?"
Yeah.
Right? And then, and how do I justify that? Right? And then, am I that person? And in what ways do I fall short of the ideal that I hold?
Yeah.
Because I used to when I used to go to the 12-step recovery, one of the things that I used to say was, we're all accidental hypocrites, right? Because I have values, things that, standards that I try to live up to,
Can't.
and I fall short.
Yeah.
And that's why, of all those years of reading the Bible with the witnesses, right? Those 4 years that we read the Bible with the witnesses, there's only one verse that still sticks out in my head that I can quote. The good that I wish I do not do, the bad that I wish is always present with me. Oh, miserable man that I am. Romans chapter 8.
Yeah.
Right? And I, because it's like, that's the human condition, I think,
Well, yeah,
in a
you
nutshell,
you have an ideal that you want.
that we want to live up to, and we fall short,
Yeah,
right? I
that's
mean,
kind of the whole
my
thing.
goal for you was to not be the kind of parent that I had.
Yeah,
Right? And yet, because of my own unresolved issues, I had anger issues that then caused you to have some of the same fears that I had growing up, right? I didn't intend to, it was accidental,
right.
right? But my value was to be a good, supportive, loving parent at all times. Did I achieve that? Most of the time, but I fell short. And I fell short often enough to where you've had to deal with stuff as a
Yeah,
result of that,
right.
right? So, but when it comes to other values like the respect for human life, right? Um, the respect that says, okay, we don't have to be friends, but we don't have to be enemies either, right? And one of the things that it seems to be the case, but again, one of the issues that I keep coming back to is that so much of even what we're talking about here is only 1/8 of the global population. All of this noise is internet. All of this noise is TV, internet.
Yeah,
And that's only, that's, like, what is it? 1.5 billion people have access to that out of a population of 8 billion,
right.
right? So you've got 1.5 billion people on a planet of 8 billion that are arguing about things that only apply to a small percentage of the 1.5 billion people that are on the internet, because most of the issues that are being bandied about are of interest to the people with resources and power.
Yeah,
I mean, you think about it. You mentioned Musk earlier with whatever he said. Or
yeah.
were we online, or was that part of our recording
No, that was
conversation?
before we started recording.
Oh, okay. But at any rate, here's the richest man in the world, right?
Talking about siding with the resistance.
Yeah, talking about siding with the resistance, and you're like, okay, the disconnect is pretty glaring in your head, but his interests as owner of SpaceX, Twitter, and
Tesla.
XAI
Yeah,
and Tesla, he's owned all these huge, companies that are doing all this stuff. And so what's of interest to him as a member of that class are the financial deals that are being made between Amazon Web Services and, Azure and NVIDIA and all the financial goings on and all of those things. And, geopolitical issues of where data centers are being built. What are the environmentalists saying? And are they going to get in the way? Those are all things that are of interest to him and his class. And that's all the news that's out there,
yeah,
right? I mean, if you're the average Joe or Jane, trying to get ready for your day, go to your whatever job, how much of what is actually coming at you in the news is relevant to your day? Do I really care that Cisco stock is only trading at $300 a share or whatever the hell it is? When, I got 2 jobs and I'm behind on my car payment or something, that, like, that level of news and what it takes to make sense of what's happening at that level is completely divorced from the day-to-day reality,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And
we
so,
got away from, like, local news and stuff. Like, it used to
yeah,
be, like, you would read your local paper, now I'm sure everybody just reads, well, the internet, the New York
well,
Times on the
everybody's on
internet.
the internet. Yeah, New
Yeah,
York Times, Washington Post, whatever. But
yeah,
now we also have our curated news feeds, right?
yeah, that too, yeah.
So now we're back into our frame. All right, we woke up to find out that Renee Good, Alex Preddy got killed, and now we have this customized news feed that is reinforcing whatever
Whichever.
worldview that we have.
Yeah,
So either it was a horrible thing, and every day we get fed the outrage,
yeah,
yeah, and look at what else I did over here. And if you think that's bad, look at what they did over here, and this and this, and
yeah,
and that's your news feed, right? So, oh yeah, you're just fired up. Meanwhile, my news feed is on the Law and Order, uh these radical leftist Marxists trying to undermine everything that makes God and America holy. And that's my news feed. And that's
yeah,
all I consume all day.
right,
Never once stepping outside, never even realizing that I'm trapped inside a box.
yeah,
Right. And, and then you get marketed tools supposedly that are going to help you step outside of that box. But it's a creation of the system. So if it's a creation of the system, is it gonna get you outside the box or not? Why not?
Because it's just like a feedback loop. It just circling.
Manufactured consent. We go
Yeah,
back to manufacturing consent, right?
yeah,
Because all right, I'm a news organization inside the box, right?
yeah,
But oh, everybody says that I'm biased. All right, well, I'm inside the box and I need you to stay inside the box because if you get outside the box, then now you escape the revenue capture.
yeah,
Right? So we can't let you outside the box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a tool that's going to let you think that you're gaining a lot of different perspectives. But
yeah,
there'll be all of the perspectives that make the game seem inevitable. It's the only game in town.
yeah.
You got to play it.
Right.
And then you go out online and you're on Medium or TikTok or whatever, and you encounter your listicles of 8 side hustles to make 2026 your best year ever, right? And on and on and on. And that entire content mill. And oh, we'll go over here, go over there. And you go over there and you've got this whole perspective and you think you've got the whole picture. Then you've got one little corner. You've got one little corner of the whole picture because on the one side, it's, oh, police abuse. And, if you're not going to stand behind me, you're more than welcome to stand in front of me with the cop with the shotgun
Yeah,
staring
yeah,
at the camera, you know, and, and yet I need to get out of that. I don't believe that, like when I meet most cops on the street, I don't actually think that they're looking to kill me. Right? And I don't wanna go out into the world with that attitude, right? That's the danger, right? Because if I go out into the world thinking that there's an enemy out there and I need to be on the lookout for him, what have I activated? My fight or flight response. I'm stressed out, high
yeah,
cortisol levels. I'm not responding to the world, I'm reacting to it.
yeah.
Because my what is that? Sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous system is activated. I always get those 2 confused. But,
Well, yeah, and
uh,
I mean, and that, but that's why I think it's, or partly the reason why it's on the state to exercise restraint. The whole, yeah, I may not comply to exactly your rules, but that doesn't mean I should die. Because I might be, because of my news feed and everything, like I might be in this state of like there's a lot of stuff going on, and like while it's not happening outside my door, you know, it's that whole idea of like eventually it could be and eventually it might be, depending on, who knows if anybody wakes up and tries to stop it, you know.
and again,
Right.
right? You're the one that you have to go out, you have to walk out your front door, you have to negotiate with other people. And part of what I think we can, the value, if there's any value in these discussions that we've been having, is being able to recognize, like, when someone says something to you, what frame they're activating, right? And at least be able to recognize that difference and not automatically assume that they're wrong or stupid.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
That's you hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Like, "You're wrong, this guy's an idiot," or "That girl's an idiot," or whatever it is. It's well, it's just 'cause they're not operating in your worldview. They're not
Yeah.
operating from the frame that you're looking things are. Look at it from their point of or not necessarily look at it from their point of view, but at least try to understand the frame that they're in. Because at least if you understand the frame that they're in, you have the opportunity of determining whether they're making a mistake in their frame
Yeah.
or it really just is, well, they're correct, based on what they believe and have assimilated about how the world works.
It's just
You
that
know, they're thinking correctly. It's just that
they're
their
un
set of assumptions and my set of assumptions about, some basic things are different. And now we can at least try to now I can at least try to find out, well, why do you believe that? You
yeah,
know? And that way it may be that they encountered something that I never did.
yeah,
They had an experience that I never had that opened their mind in a way that mine didn't. This is sort of like, we'll fly off on another tangent as we're coming up on the
yeah, I
hour.
was gonna say.
Um, we'll just leave this for
Yeah,
something to think about. But like, there's a group of, they call it the psychedelic renaissance, basically. I think there's a guy, Jamie Wheel, wrote a book, Recapture the Rapture. There's a guy, used to be Rebel Wisdom, Andy Biner, who, went on a few DMT things and is now all, like psychedelic therapy, kind of thing. And I always find that to be interesting because I'm like, I went to a few dozen Grateful Dead shows in my life,
yeah,
and I drank beer and I took mushrooms and I smoked weed and I danced and I had fun.
yeah,
And the psychedelic experience is a different way of being in the world. It
yeah,
definitely is, right? And it's a different way of understanding like how things appear to you and the way they are in day-to-day life, our solid table and mostly
yeah,
atoms. And yet, to take that experience of just presence with another group of people just having fun and
yeah,
carrying on and being silly and goofy and all that kind of crap for the few hours of and then, life returns to normal. And that being able to move in and out of those different ways of being without elevating any one of them to be the way,
yeah,
right? And so you can experience someone else, a different way of being in the world, and then say, "Oh, okay, now I understand where you're coming from." See, I haven't had an experience like that.
yeah,
I've never taken mushrooms. I've never done any hallucinogenics, so I don't know what that's like. But now I understand why you're saying what you're saying because you've done that,
yeah,
as opposed to hearing what they're saying, "Oh, you're a moron."
yeah, right,
Right? Because it doesn't comport with experiences that you've actually had.
yeah. Sounds good.
Right? You haven't done any you never did hallucinogenics, did you?
I mean, not
Nah.
besides cannabis, which is mild, so
Well, yeah, but no, I meant like the stuff that, it takes you off in
like
outer
the
space
real
stuff. You
stuff,
never did
yeah.
that. Yeah. Well,
But
see, so there you go. There's our experiences that I've had that you haven't had. So if I start to talk about like those kind of weird relations that you can have between you and a rock, right? Where it speaks to you in a way, and you're looking at me going, "Yeah, okay. No concept, Dad. Sorry, you lost me. You left me in the dust."
right.
All right, kid. It looks like we've done our hour.
Yeah,
Fairly productive, I think,
yeah,
overall. Um,
yes,
we like to leave with we always like to leave with a kind of parting thought. You
yeah.
got one today, Mark?
Um, do I have one? Well, I guess we could just
Something for the audience to think about.
yeah, okay. Here's a good one. At what point does just comply stop being advice and become indoctrination?
All right. So at what point does the instruction from authority
Yeah.
become indoctrination? When it stops being a request?
Yeah, well, because like we touched on it, compliance is somewhat necessary. Just it not
For a
somewhat, it is
smoothly functioning
necessary.
society.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is necessary for a functioning society. But I guess it's like we've also touched on it's like the compliance is, the laws are here, but not all laws are necessarily right or wrong or whatever. So it's
Mhm.
a constant course correction, but we're starting to talk again. So, anyways, thanks again for joining us. Once again, like, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff. And this has
And
been
it
occasion.
well, see, one of the things that I noticed that's different that you and I do, we at least give people the chance to listen to the whole conversation to decide if they wanna like or subscribe, rather
Yeah,
than telling them right at the beginning of the show to like and subscribe. So if you made it this far and you
yeah,
enjoyed our conversation and you wanna join in, click like, click
yeah.
subscribe, leave us a comment, hit the bell icon. Take care of yourselves until next time. I'm Doug,
And
that's Mark, and this has been
occasionally philosophical.
Bye.